Hello and welcome to this quick tutorial. I'm going to show you how to work the first 3 rounds of my pattern for Tunisian crochet smock stitch placemats. As for any Tunisian project, start by making a chain. You want to count exactly 33 chains, and it is fairly important early in the pattern for your counts to be exact. So chain 33 times, meet me at the end of that. Now you want to create 4 stitches into the second back bump from the hook as follows. Work a simple Tunisian stitch into that back bump, yarn over, and work a second simple Tunisian stitch into that same back bump. In this way, you've created 4 stitches which constitute one end of your placemat in the shape of a semicircle. Now, as the pattern states, you're going to work 30 simple stitches into each or into the back bumps of the chain straight down the line. Skipping ahead a bit, here I am, and I've worked 30 simple stitches into the back bumps. Now I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to work 1 simple stitch into the very last back bump. It's always a little tight. Yarn over again, and work a second simple stitch into that same back bump. And just like we did at the beginning, that now creates 4 stitches into that last back bump. At this point, we must introduce color B and work a return pass. So grab your second lightly contrasting color and just loop it under the hook and pull through 1 stitch on the hook. Then yarn over and pull through 2. And in all subsequent return passes in the project, you will always yarn over and pull through 2, just like you would with any Tunisian project. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. When you're finished that, turn the project back around and here's what you have. This is the very first chain that you created. It has the slip knot and the yarn tail attached. You're going to skip that one. So insert under both loops of the second chain and pull up a loop. So that's a simple stitch worked into that first chain. And you just keep doing that right down the line. So each time insert under both loops of the chain and pull up a loop. In this way, you work 30 simple Tunisian stitches in the other side of your starting chain. Here I am at the end. I've now worked exactly 30 simple stitches into that chain. Now it's time to take a break and have a look at what you have after working some return pass stitches, which I've done off camera. You should have 4 Tunisian simple stitches at this end of the project going around in a semicircle. So take a look and see if you can identify all 4 of them. The very first vertical bar is on the end, the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. A little trick to orient yourself in the pattern to make sure your counts are correct is to look at the third one and to identify that there's always a little bump at the base of it. It looks to me like a purl bump. That's always the third stitch of your semicircle at this point in the pattern. So as the pattern states, start by yarning forward and working a simple stitch into that first vertical bar. It's a little loose and the yarn tail is getting in the way, but just ignore that. Pull it tight. Yarn forward again and work a simple stitch into the second vertical bar of your semicircle. Yarn forward and work the third one. This one's always a bit tight and you can see the purl bump at the base of it pretty clearly just because of the way it was created. Yarn forward and do a simple stitch into the fourth vertical bar. I'm just going to show you now how to work the return pass. Once you start doing those yarn forwards, things start looking a little weird. The stitches are crisscrossed over one another with the yarn forward crossed over the regular stitch it was paired with. On the return pass, you always want to work the yarn forward second and the regular stitch first. This is how I deal with this. You'll develop your own way, but this is the method that I find is easy to deal with the fact that the stitches are sometimes in the wrong order on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3. Then reinsert the hook under the yarn forward alone and pull through 2. So basically you make a mistake, you yarn over and pull through all 3 deliberately, because those stitches are so tightly grouped together. Then reinsert just under the yarn forward. And if you want to make sure you're looking at the yarn forward, it's the stitch that's extra long and veers off towards the left when you look at the back of the work. So reinsert the hook under just the yarn forward, which is what you wanted to work second, yarn over and pull through 2. So here we have the stitches completely swapped on the hook. So the yarn forward is actually not so much crisscrossed, but completely in front of the regular stitch. Just confirm that that first stitch is in fact the yarn forward. You want to work it second, and you can sort of see by looking at the base of where those stitches originate that they're in the wrong order. Yarn over, pull through 3, reinsert under that first stitch, which we confirmed was the yarn forward, and then yarn over, pull through 2. You get pretty fast at this, and it does get easier as you go. It's particularly awkward on these first rounds. So yarn over, pull through all 3, reinsert under the yarn forward. Once you've worked those back pass stitches and completed the semicircle, this is what it looks like. It's a little simpler now. You just have vertical bars, which you can work into straight down the line. As the pattern states, you're going to want to do exactly 15 smock stitches. So here we are. I'm assuming you do know how to do smock stitch. I have a video on my channel if you don't. But basically yarn forward, insert into the next 2 vertical bars from right to left, and pull through both. So do that exactly 15 times on the straight side of your placemat. Work some return pass stitches. And here we are close to the end. I've worked exactly 15 smock stitches down the line, and I'm ready to do the second semicircular end. Here we have our 4 semicircle stitches. Just take a moment to identify them the first time you attempt to do this, and have a look at the third one, confirm that it has that bump at the base of it, just so you know you're in the right place. And there it is. Here I'm going to show you just on a different project with slightly better stitch definition, just so that you can definitely see that purl bump at the base of the third semicircle. So as the pattern states, yarn forward and work a simple stitch into the first vertical bar, which is right on the end. Yarn forward again, work the second as a simple stitch, and we're basically creating 2 stitches each time we do that, which are worked on the following row as a smock stitch. Yarn forward, work the third stitch, and there you can clearly see that purl bump at the base of it. It's because it was created using a yarn over. And yarn forward and work the 4th one. So hopefully that helps see clearly what it is that we're supposed to be doing at this stage, because I think this is really the tricky part. Yarn forward, work that first vertical bar, which always has the yarn tail coming out of it from the return pass. Yarn forward, work the second vertical bar as a simple stitch. Yarn forward, work the third vertical bar. That one's always a bit tight. And yarn forward and work the 4th one. And at this point, you always have to stop and work some return pass stitches because you've gone around a semicircle with a straight hook. Finally, to complete this round, we want to do exactly the same thing we did on the other side. Work 15 smock stitches straight down the line. So yarn forward, insert through 2 bars, and pull through both. You will notice there is a little bit of curl in the project at this point. The bottom does tend to curl up towards you and get in your way. Fortunately, working Tunisian crochet in the round virtually eliminates any tendency to curl, so as you go, that will diminish. Once you've completed exactly 15 smock stitches, I'll skip ahead just slightly to the end of that here. Then again, we're ready to work a semicircle, so take a break and look at what you have. We've worked these semicircles with yarn forwards, so now we have these crisscrossed stitches, which is pretty much exactly what all smock stitches look like when you work them in the round. They look like an X. So take a moment and identify that you have 4 of these X's working their way around the semicircle. They are a little tightly grouped on these first rounds. They get much easier to identify as time goes on, but here I am, I've identified 4 X's, so I'm ready to work them. Pattern states to work the first one as a smock stitch. So yarn forward, insert under both arms of that X, yarn over and pull through both. Now we identify our second X of the semicircle, and it states to work that as an increase. So here is how to do that. It's quite easy. Yarn forward as usual, and instead of inserting through both arms, insert through just the first or rightmost arm of that smock stitch. Yarn forward again and insert through the second or left arm of that X. Yarn over and pull through. So basically you're working each arm of the X separately with its own yarn forward, creating 4 stitches where there were 2, or 2 smock stitches where there was 1. The next smock stitch is to be worked as just a smock stitch, so yarn forward, insert through both arms of the X and pull through both. And the fourth one is worked as an increase. So yarn forward, insert the hook under the right arm, and yarn over and pull through. Yarn forward and insert under the left arm. Yarn over and pull through. Next, the pattern states to simply work 15 smock stitches straight down the line. So identify the first smock stitch of your straightaway and work it. Yarn forward, insert under both arms of the X, and pull through. And that is how to work a smock stitch on top of a row that was previously worked as smock stitch. So identify those X's. They also look like an inverted V depending on which angle you look at them. Yarn forward, work under both arms, yarn over and pull through both. So here we are at the other end, ready to work another semicircle. So start by working 1 smock stitch. Identify the next X down the line along the semicircle and work it as an increase. So there it is. Yarn forward, work just the right arm, yarn over and pull through, just as a simple stitch basically. Yarn forward and work a simple stitch into the left arm. Pattern states to work the next one as a smock stitch. I struggle a little bit to do that because I really need to go and work some return pass stitches. It gets tight if you accumulate too many stitches, so I've done that off camera, and I'm ready to work the final stitch of the semicircle, which is worked as an increase. And insert under each arm separately, each with its own yarn forward. Now you're ready to work another 15 straight down the line to complete the round. I'll zoom through that fairly quickly. Once you've completed 15 smock stitches, you're finished round 3 and ready to start round 4. I just want to show you what it looks like when you work the yarn forward and the regular stitch in the wrong order on the return pass. The arms of the X are not crossed over each other, but they're sort of separated. Don't let that fool you if you have made that mistake. Just work it together as a smock stitch as you normally would. The last thing I want to show you is how to place and follow the marker. The marked stitch is always the last stitch of the round. When the pattern states to place the marker on the stitch just worked, Place the marker onto either arm of the inverted V or smock stitch that you just worked so that the working yarn is slung through that stitch. Now here I've worked all the way around this project and I'm approaching the end of the round. Here's how to tell if you've worked the last stitch of the round. Identify the V that the marker is in, and the corresponding smock stitch of the current row will be the one just up and to the right of the marker. So I've worked one more smock stitch, and that's where I think I should be. Just double check by identifying that the line of V's goes up in a straight line diagonally to the right, and the working yarn is slung through that marked stitch, so I'm finished the round. Now I've worked another entire round all the way around. I think I'm where I should be, but then just double check by identifying the marked stitch as an inverted V, and then up and to the right in a diagonal. It should be a straight line. It sort of curves because of the way I'm holding this project, but generally it's a straight line diagonally up and to the right. So no matter how many rounds from the marker you get, you can always identify where you are. So you can see I have 2 more smock stitches to work on this round before I'm finished the round. That corresponds to the marked stitch, the one with the green circle around it. And so I have 2 more smock stitches to go. I really hope that that video helps to get you through the first few rounds of this project. After that, it gets much easier, and these placemats are really fun to make. Thank you for watching.